Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, and I believe that the right book at the right time can change lives, and that all readers should read children's literature, especially adults. So that's what we do here on the KidLit Love podcast. We celebrate all things children's literature: picture books, early readers, middle grade, and young adult novels for readers of all ages. In each episode, we'll talk with children's literature authors and discuss their books, their hopes, their dreams for readers, their writing process, and much, much more. Whether you're an adult reading to their inner child or connecting the young readers in your life with fantastic books, you've come to the right place. So grab a notebook to build your TBR, and let's get to today's episode of KidLit Love. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the KidLit Love podcast. I'm Stephanie Affinito, your KidLit loving host, inviting you back for another bookish conversation with a children's literature author. Today, I'm talking with Antwan Eady. Antwan is the author of the award-winning picture books Nigel and the Moon and The Last Stand. He's here today to talk about his newest picture book, The Gathering Table. This absolutely stunning book conveys the love that an extended family has for one another as they gather around the familial table to celebrate holidays, weddings, and just being together. The love literally radiates off the page, listeners, and I cannot wait to share it with you. So we're going to get right to the episode. Antwan, welcome to KidLit Love. I'm so glad you're here today.
Stephanie, thank you for having me. Of course, we know that this has been a long time in the making, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to finally be here too. And judging from the amount of banter that we had before about everything and everything, including our love of coffee beans, I think we're going to have a great conversation.
I think so. I'm excited to dive in.
But before we get to your book, which is our big topic of conversation today, I would love to start with you and have you give us a little bit of your backstory and describe your journey into children's literature to talking about your newest picture book today.
Yes, thank you. I like to tell people that I am a country boy from the dirt roads of South Carolina. I grew up in Garnett, South Carolina, and went to undergrad at Clemson University. But before going to undergrad, when I was a high school senior, I actually wrote my first picture book. And it wasn't something for publication, it was more so for the little ones in the community. And it was a part of a classroom project. But I fell in love with picture books then. And I said, well, maybe one day I'll write those when I become a grandparent. Like I'm thinking like very, very old and I'll like get back into it, but I always wrote poetry. So writing has always been a part of my life. It's always been a part of my story. And I was introduced to Dr. Maya Angelou when I was in the second grade, when my cousin was playfully reciting And Still I Rise. And something about the words, something about the cadence, which I didn't know that term at the time, but something about the flow of it just didn't seem like normal writing or reading. And I was like, what is that? So I started reading poetry from there. I started writing my own poetry. But I wanted to, as a first generation college student, I needed something that was practical. So I kind of avoided the creative aspect of my personality, of my existence. And I was like, well, let's go into pre veterinary medicine. But it wasn't until my senior year that I actually wanted to switch majors to creative writing to English because I realized I did not want to attend vet school. It didn't happen. I graduated. I had to have the conversation with my parents. I went ahead and graduated, but somehow words never left me and I never left words. So I found my way back into this space in 2019 after meeting a young Black author for the first time. And that became my journey of me getting into this industry, learning about the industry, but I had never heard of literary agents. I had never heard of the Big Five. I didn't know that there was a blueprint to becoming an author. Um, and now that I know that there is one, I just wanted to knock down every door and then leave that door open for others to enter. And that's what I've been doing since.
So how did you figure that blueprint out? What did you do once you realized, okay, I really want to do this. I want to figure this out. Were you the kind of person that took the workshops and the courses and the finding your critique groups? I'm very curious of that part. And I know a lot of listeners would be too.
I love that question because I don't think anyone's ever asked me that before. And I did not know anything about like an SCBWI. I did not know anything about, I wasn't on social media either at the time. So I didn't know about the writing community at the time, Twitter. But when I met the young Black author, I remember reaching out to a former client of ours in animal medicine who had written a book, and her book debuted the year prior. And I just asked, like, hey, like, how did you go about, learning about this industry? And she told me about writer's market. I think that's the name. I checked it out at the local library, and from there, I learned about querying and learned about agents and again the big five and other publishers. So I got on Twitter. I started building community from there in 2019. I got on Twitter, I think, in maybe March of 2019. And yeah, I just started like immersing myself in this industry and picture books specifically because that was the other part. I had started novels, I had started screenplays, and I'm working on a novel now. But picture books became my part because over the years, there were breadcrumbs for sure. Because over the years, as my friends from undergrad were giving birth and having baby showers and having a lot of nephews and nieces myself, I've always purchased books for them, especially picture books to help build their library. So again, I was always around books in that sense. So yeah, 2019, I got started with Writers Market. I learned about querying, learned about literary agents, and I discovered organizations like the writing workshops and things after I had already had a book deal. So I was kind of already into this well before I knew about organizations that would help someone like me. But also, too, I think the barrier for me would have been the financial aspect of it because with my schedule, with the money that I just didn't have to like travel from. I'm currently based in Savannah, Georgia, to like a New York or to like places where a lot of those workshops and retreats are. I wouldn't have had the fun for it, and I would not have been able to because of my time. And
Yeah.
now we use Zoom and things a lot more, which has made it so much more accessible for someone like me. But at the time, I wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, we're always looking for the silver linings of the pandemic. And I feel like the normalcy now of Zoom, of like for me, Zoom just feels like real life now. This
Yes.
is how things are done. And I feel like it has made some of those workshops, some of those things a bit more accessible, at least removing that travel component
Yes.
and that piece. So that's yeah, it's a great thing for aspiring authors to think about. But I also love that you said, I did it anyway, right? You
Yeah.
figured it out. You figured it out by just getting your feet wet. And Twitter used to be, there's still evidence of it there, but it did used to be this big, beautiful space for children's literature that was just a wonderful rabbit hole to jump in.
Yeah.
So
And it's
I love hearing
unfortunate. Oh, sorry. It's unfortunate that it's changed a little bit now. But
that.
yeah, it was. It did aid me in learning more about the industry and being able to ask questions, but also connect with established authors
Yeah.
and people trying to get into the industry like myself,
Yeah.
where we did form critique groups, and we were able to just kind of bounce off one another creatively, but also brainstorm ideas and talk about the ins and outs of the industry. So I do wish that there was still a platform where people could connect, and I think there are, and they're becoming that. But I don't think we have what I had back in 2019.
Yeah.
Um, and on the other side of that too, because publishing is a business, it was great to have people to help you avoid pitfalls and to have those honest and transparent conversations about the business side of the industry because that is exactly what it is, and you need community in that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something an unexpected benefit that I've loved out of this podcast is the book love, of course, but just understanding the nuts and bolts and all of
Yes,
the things it took for authors to sit on the podcast and talk about their published book. I feel like it just helps me appreciate the fact that I'm holding it in my hands even more,
absolutely.
hearing how long and how difficult and just, the determination sometimes it's just needed to go all the way. I feel like it just makes me appreciate. the whole
You
process.
know, I agree, and that's what fueled me, because you mentioned me doing it anyway. I felt like publishing was intentionally kept from so many people,
Mhm.
and something about that ignited something inside of me
Yeah.
because and I spent a lifetime since the second grade wanting to be a poet, wanting to be a writer, and taking a lifetime until 2019 to realize, like, hey, remember when you didn't think that there was a blueprint to this industry? There is, but you just weren't aware of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people aren't aware of it. So as soon as I became aware of it, I was like, okay, so others have figured this out. Publishing has, I think, intentionally been a secret for so long. Some people in publishing have kept it a secret. So let's aim to one, get into this industry, two, to demystify the publishing process for others.
Yeah.
Because it felt like everything in my life was leading up to that moment. This, as soon as I met the young Black author by the name of Nana Kwame Adjei, I was immediately like, all right, I'm going to start back writing. And I did. And I always say I picked the pen up that day and never put it back down. And
Mm.
immediately that same night, that's when I sent the email to the former client and asked about, just any sort of advice into getting into the industry. And she pointed me in the direction of writer's market. Um, that's when I just was like, all right, I know what I'm doing. Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
A lot of trial and error, but I figured it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Which leads us to talking a little bit about your book. So I know we're here to talk about the gathering table, but let's name drop your other titles.
Yeah.
Go ahead and
Okay.
tell us a little bit about them before we dive into your newest.
Absolutely. So my debut, which came out in 2022, is Nigel and the Moon. Nigel and the Moon is illustrated by Gracie Zhang, and it's a story about a young boy who's afraid to tell the world his dreams, so he shares them with the moon at night. And Nigel was actually my fourth or fifth picture book because the book that I got an agent, where I got multiple agents offer with, wasn't good enough in publishing's eyes. So that book is now shelved. So I continued to write, and then with that same agent, later wrote Nigel and the Moon, and it went to auction. And HarperCollins, Catherine Teagan Books, which is no longer Catherine Teagan Books, but at the time, Catherine Teagan Books acquired it. And from there, I went on to create The Last Stand, illustrated by Jared and Jerome Pumphrey, aka the Pumphrey brothers. And that's a story about a granddad, his grandson, and their last stand at the farmer's market in a community that needs them as much as they need that community. And I'm extremely proud of both books. Both went to auction. And to have gone from not knowing anything about this industry to having the industry fight for my work has
Yes.
been such a surreal moment, but also a moment that humbles me and grounds me and allows me to know I'm exactly where I needed to be. And sometimes people say, well, I wasn't supposed to be here. And I'm not saying that. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And I love that feeling because this seriously has been a lifetime in the making, a lifetime coming for me. And I'm just proud of both books. I'm proud of the illustrators I've been fortunate enough to collaborate with. Um, and now with the Gathering Table and London Labs, beautiful illustrations. It's just a journey of working with some of the best in the industry. Uh, Nigel and the Moon, we've gone from having multiple foreign rights deals to sub rights deals to we have a plush through Made Makers. For the Last Stand, we have sub rights deals and audio
Wow.
players attached to Wonder Books and Box. And yeah, it's just been both have been the gifts that kind of keep on giving. And I'm excited to like continue to share that and announce things whenever I can for both books. So
Yes.
yes.
Oh, I love everything that you have just said. I think, giving a quick little overview of those two books and then leading into the book that we're talking about today, there is just a beautiful, I don't know if I want to say message or philosophy or
Mm,
something embodied in your books. And of course I do my research and I poke around websites and I look places. And what I love that you said that has been a theme in your whole introduction so far, one of your goals, your hopes is access to literature, but access to literature that inspires readers, saves them, and changes their lives because that's what they did. for you. Like, and you're doing
Absolutely.
it. You are so doing it. And hearing about that now, it's just, it's even, I imagine it's even more than you imagined at the beginning. And I can't imagine how that feels like. Congratulations. It's just wonderful.
Thank you. I received that. I wholeheartedly received that. And it has been, there have been moments, there are still pinch me moments. There have been moments where I've woken up and thought, oh, this can be snatched away from me at any moment. And that's true. I mean, because life happens too, but I've also learned to be present in what I'm experiencing, to receive what I'm experiencing. And thankfully, I have an agent who reminds me that so much of what is happening is because of me too.
Yeah.
So when I do my thank yous and I do my gratitude, I'm learning to always include myself in it because I got myself here too. Excuse me, but yeah, it's been a beautiful journey of receiving the love, giving that love back, and just seeing my growth in my writing and my growth as an author in this business.
Yeah. Oh, what a perfect segue to talk about The Gathering Table, your newest book that we are here to officially discuss. This book, and I'm going to turn it over to you to give the overview um, of it to readers. But as I mentioned before we pressed record, this book is just love on a page. It just radiates from the words, from the illustrations. And you mentioned loving poetry, which is clearly evident in this book. I feel like picture books are their own form of poetry because of the very condensed nature, but this book certainly is
Yes.
so lyrical as well. It's all the things. So I'm going to pass it to you to give listeners a little overview of the gathering table and perhaps the inspiration behind it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for all of what you just said too. The gathering table is on the surface level a table of love, a table of hope, a table of pride, and a table of freedom. Illustrated by London Ladd. It is low country, South Carolina's low country on the page. I want to share my experience growing up in South Carolina, in South Carolina's low country with others. I
Mhm.
wanted to tell a story about my childhood and the tables in my life because we literally have a gathering table outdoors. It's still in my parents' house right now. And we gathered for birthdays, weddings, whatever the celebration was. It could have just been a random Saturday in the summer where we would have a low country boil, which is crab, shrimp, sausage, corn, potato dumped out. And I just remember as a kid watching the elders around the table, watching my cousins around my age around the table, and the beauty of that, where we would laugh and we would laugh well, we would eat and we would eat well. But I also knew that something else was happening. I didn't have the language for it then, but gaps were being bridged and gaps were being re-bridged. And all of these connections were helping and helping us all retain our customs and our traditions. Culture was being passed down. But I also saw community because from when I was born until I was 16, the first Saturday in October, my parents held a large celebration in our front yard and in our backyard. And it was family members, there were neighbors, there were my mom's and dad's like colleagues, there were people, anybody was welcome, honestly, because we would put flyers up around the community. We were promoted. This is before like a lot of social media, so we were like literally putting flyers up, and anyone was welcome around the table, and that lasted for 16 years. When I was younger, we we would have to stay at my grandma's house. Um, because there are a lot of adults and sometimes some adult beverages around. And so we were kind of shipped off down the street a little bit to stay with my grandparents' house. And this is a funny story I've never shared publicly, I don't think. But I had asthma. I was born with asthma, and I would fake having an asthma attack just so that I could go back home. So I would fake have an asthma attack just so I can be around the gathering.
Yes.
Uh, and when I became older, around middle school and high school, I started making the flyers for my parents and putting all of the food that my mom would prepare because that's what my mom did. She did all the desserts, she did all of the food, and my dad he handled all of the barbecue side of things.
Mm.
And it was a full week long process leading up to it. But also, one of my mom's best friends, she would come down a week ahead of time and just stay with us. She would stay with us, and I just remember the 16 years of having my mom's best friend stay with us leading up to it with my dad and my uncles and cousins being outside preparing all of the barbecue stuff. And then just my mom preparing everything uh, for the gathering. And it was just amazing. And we literally would have hundreds of people. And it was, to this day, I still love it. I love the idea of it. We don't have it anymore, but I love it. I
Oh,
guess, well, in a sense, we do have it. We have it in this book now.
right, right. And now I think listeners can get a clear understanding, whether they've read your book or not, of why it is love on the page. It
Yes,
just radiates. Hearing you talk about how that was in your own childhood, the people, the food, the traditions around it. Oh,
yes,
it's beautiful. And I'm saying love is radiating off the page, but there's a line in the book and these other concepts that are embodied of not just love, but of hope, of pride,
yes,
and of freedom. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that too.
yes. I'll start with freedom because that those gatherings were some of the safest moments in my life. And I didn't have the language for it at the time, but there was just that feeling where we could all exist the way we were meant to exist and be the way that we were meant to be, and there wasn't any judgment. Um, when I got older, because my mom and dad funded the entire gathering, they started charging a little bit later, and people still came. And I think we got to maybe $10 or $15 when I was around in high school. And then I became the person. I'm the youngest of six, but I became the person at the I guess the gate before you could get to our place. That would, like, I was collecting the funds and
You're the
collecting the
cashier.
cash. Yeah, and and sometimes we would swap out. We had someone handle parking, and we had a dance floor. We had these bars that my dad built. He built these outdoor bars. He built the tables, and just this entire lead up to the gathering was just some of the most beautiful things. But freedom was just everything you felt down those dirt roads, and it was the largest event that we had down those dirt roads. So imagine just seeing all these cars just one after the other, hitting all the bumps and dips that dirt roads offer, just coming there, and it would be a long line. And we started giving out tickets to make sure that people, like with parking, and it just became a huge deal. But like I said, there were people who weren't family that were there too, and it was just a wonderful experience, a wonderful way to see what freedom looks like with a community of people that were just able to be as they were meant to be. But then there was hope. There was hope because when people left, they always looked forward to the next year. Again, this always took place the first Saturday in October for 16 years. But they always, before they left, they always wanted to say, I can't wait for next year. I'm ready for next year. But people, I guess, left too just feeling there's a sense of when communities gather that you do feel that love, but you feel hopeful. It's the way I feel whenever I have a school visit and I'm with young dreamers and I see their joy and it's radiant. I leave feeling hopeful. Even if I didn't enter feeling hopeful, I leave feeling like, you know what? We can live another day. We can make this happen another day. There's hope there. And then there's that pride too. There's pride when we gathered for a cousin's wedding. It was the first wedding that we had in our backyard. And I just remember the beauty of that because I love our backyard. I love the beauty of being out in nature and all of the trees surrounding us and the landscaping that my dad had. And I would see full pride on display of my heritage, which is Gullah Geechee, of Black Americans, of just everyone celebrating and being their authentic selves. And that's what I just remember. And I wanted to make sure I incorporated all of that. So when I thought about, well, what recipe, what are the makings of this book? What are the makings of the gathering table? And it hit me. It was hope, it was pride, it was love, and it was freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. Which are beautiful concepts for young readers to encounter and to feel, like literally feel on that page, whether they feel it in their own life or not, they're going to feel what that feels like when they are reading this
Mm,
book. But I feel like this is a book that every adult reader also needs to read, right? Because
Yes.
you have this beautiful back matter note from you in the book that talks about like what are your tables? What are the tables of your childhood? What are your tables now? What are the tables that you're creating? And it's just a reminder that that this kind of connection, this kind of community, this kind of love, this kind of acceptance, it can't exist, right? It can't
Yes.
exist. But what I love, and this is probably the second time, maybe the third, that I got teary in your book with love reading off the pages, was when you said, if for those without, right, for those without that kind of gathering table, that kind of love, um, there will always be room at our table for you. And I went, oh, here they come. Get the Kleenex, because that is what your book feels like. It
Mm.
it truly, truly feels like it. And that's just a beautiful thing to be able to put on a page, to have a reader feel as much as I felt, as I know as much as other readers will feel. It's just it's a beautiful experience. I'll call it an experience.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that for sure because that is truly the message of this book. I look at my parents and I look at how welcoming they were because my parents are now deceased. Um, and I look at how welcoming they were to anyone already having 6 kids in the house. When my mom went to the local convenience store and there was a little one that may not have, my mom would go into the store, bring something for them. So much so that at one point my mom had to say, "Hey, I'm gonna take care of y'all, but just don't always run up to my car when you see me because she's like, let me, I'll get you something, but just give me a second to get out of the car and like go into the
Yes.
store." And these weren't like big stores. There was like, I mean, a small gas station. It's the nearest gas station to us that had like one pump, so or maybe two pumps. But again, this is a small community in Garnet, South Carolina, and they just took care of people. And we were taught every year to, we donated things, whatever clothing and things that we had, we first make sure our cousins had, and then the rest we would like just donate. And my mom and dad just instilled that in us to be welcoming, to be respectful, especially when someone is in your home or at your place. You just make them feel welcome, as if they're family. And I saw that through their actions and through their teachings and the lessons that they were verbalized to us. But it was truly through their actions because yeah, I'm reflecting back, and I wish we took more pictures during this time because those gatherings were just something incredible. And I'm thinking about it now as I'm talking to you about it, and I don't see that as often anymore. And my parents, just because those gatherings, they required a lot of work and they were costly because they never broke even when they charged people for. I mean, it was all you can eat, all you can drink, and they never ran out of food. Because so much so that we had family members that would join us the next day just to like, after the gathering, they would just, they would gather at our place again just to recap and talk about the night before and the fun that everyone had. So that would be a smaller group of people, that would just, and we gave out leftovers. My mom would make sure she would call people and say, "Hey, we have this leftover. Come get it. Come get it." Um, but yeah, it was such a beautiful thing, and I wish I had realized it early on. I knew it was special, but I didn't know just how special. And sometimes it does take us getting out of those spaces in order for us to realize just how special those spaces were and how unique those spaces. And in writing this book, I feel like I wanted to kind of apologize and say thank you, but to do the tables in my life, I want to do them justice now. Thank you because what you're saying is allowing me to know and feel that I've done it justice.
Absolutely. And I feel like listening to you explain the idea, where the essence of this book came from. It's your legacy, but it's also your parents. Like,
Yes.
oh, what a beautiful gift, not just to us, but to them at the same time.
Yeah. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot because it's part of writing this book. I honestly didn't realize until writing, well, now going on tour for the book, is when I realized that I've created my own table, my own gathering table. so much of why I wrote this book was the longing for the table in my life that I used to have. Again, it's still at my parents' home now. My parents have been deceased now 8 years, and it's been the longing for the not having that anymore, or when we try to have it with my siblings and their kids, is different. And that's the grieving process that we all are trying to still move through and navigate. And we're all different. We have different personalities. But even when we aren't speaking their names or speaking about who's no longer at the table, we feel it, and you can tell because we've tried to keep traditions the same. We've tried to do the same gatherings that we once had, but it's different because we've also lost a sibling. So just over the years, a part of me was just feeling nostalgic and grieving the table. But I wrote this, I think, in 2020. So if you look at now, coming into 2025, and for me to not realize that now, like I've actually built my own table here in Savannah, Georgia. I've built my own community here. It's been a beautiful eye-opening experience for me because my friends gather here on Sundays where we play Uno, we'll talk, we'll just capture, memories. And also my friends here host gatherings at their places. And it's been beautiful coming of age in a sense as a young adult. Well, now I'm even more of an adult, but coming of age in a different way for me. And yeah, so thank you for sharing that.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, you're so welcome. I do want to make sure we mention as well, with a little bit more
Mhm.
explicitness, the beautiful illustrations.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I I am always in awe of how illustrators do what they do and how they bring the stories to life and the emotion they convey. But I've said a couple of times your book is like love on the page, rating off the
Mm.
page. And those illustrations are part of the magic. They evoke at the same time this calmness, but this joyfulness and this peace and this busy belonging and the warmth. Like there's just so many things that come from those pictures. I just love for you to give some kudos to the illustrator and maybe what you think about how they complement your words.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So London Lad had shown up on my list of potential illustrators. And it was just a no-brainer for us. The only thing we had to do is wait for London to say yes and for London's team to say yes. But the beautiful thing that London did, and I knew we were in great hands in this moment, was after London signed on to illustrate the gathering table, he actually flew down to this part. London's based in New York, but he flew down to Savannah, Georgia. He visited South Carolina's Low Country. He visited Savannah, Georgia. He visited this one area called Pinpoint, which is some of the largest land still owned by Gullah Geechee people. And he immersed himself in the culture because he had never spent time here before. And he looked at the trees, he visited historic homes, he learned about Gullah Geechee culture, and he poured all of that into what people are seeing now. And that is a true testament to just a great illustrator, but a great person, but someone who wants to take care of the story that they're illustrating. And he wasn't just the one that wanted to just say yes. He wanted to honor the culture. He wanted to honor this setting, and he did. And it's been wonderful hearing that compliment from people here in the Low Country when they see this book and they know that it's home. But it's also been a compliment. It's been wonderful to hear people who have just visited Charleston, South Carolina, Beaufort, South Carolina, Savannah, Georgia, Jacksonville, Florida, that may live in New York now to say, I remember this, or like just looking at these homes and feeling that sense of, yeah, that's exactly what it looked like. So we've been hearing some amazing things. And London just, yeah, when he came down, the only thing he needed was a few recommendations for places to visit and people to connect with. And I was able to provide that for him. But London poured so much of himself into this book. And we were at ALA recently, the American Library Association conference. And it was our first time meeting in person, first signing that we had together. And just in our line, so many people were talking about the illustrations for sure. And I'm glad London was able to feel and receive that love because he's talented and he's done a lot of books too. Um, I think with this one in particular, with a particular focus on Gullah Geechee culture, it's been a different experience for him, but in a great way. So I'm very proud of how it turned out. I'm very proud of how it looks, how it feels, and the message, and the beauty that just leaps off the page for sure.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you shared that that's what he did because now I can see why it is so clear and so felt because he felt it. He felt it and represented it on the page. Oh,
Absolutely. I think something that our editor shared was that, you know, London just connected with that idea, the last line in that author's note that you mentioned, connecting with, if for those without, this is a table for them. When you think about your childhood or you think about teenage years, and you think about tables in your life now, I do want people to feel that this is a welcome to them, and we welcome with open arms, for sure. And that once you're around the table, you become family, and that's the truth.
yes. Oh, that was just beautiful. You become family. And I feel like just reading this book, we become part of your family and your
Yes,
table because that is what is so felt in this book. Is that
thank
your
you. It's
hope?
one.
Is that your hope for readers and just for your book in general to give us that same sense of community, of connection? Well, I'm putting words in your mouth. What is your hope
No, that
for the
that
book?
is it. My hope truly is for young dreamers, for adults, for anyone reading this book to one feel as though there will always be a table for them. And it may not be a table with our biological families. It may be chosen family. It may be the families that we've created, the families that we're creating. But for this book, for this table, for the table in this book, everyone with good intentions, with love, with hope, with pride, and with freedom, they're welcome at this table. And, there's a line that I won't ruin, but in the back, I mean, toward the end, where it said, everyone leaves with a plate. That's the truth. Like, you come in love, leave in love. And that's what I want people to feel, especially today, but any day, but especially right now, to know that there's a place for you, that you belong here, that we welcome you here. And yeah, we're willing to share the laughs, we're willing to share the food, we're willing to share the culture and traditions, but also bring your own culture and traditions so that we can learn from you.
Yeah.
So my hope is that my biggest hope would be Jacqueline Woodson wrote in The Day You Begin, she said, the opening line is, there will be times when you walk into a room and no one there is quite like you. That in itself is a reminder that there's something unique and special about you. And when you feel safe enough to share it with us, because yes, we'll figure out that there are similarities. Yes, there will be differences, but my hope is for readers to want to share what makes them unique, to want to share the tables that they may have had, to want to share the experiences of not having a table, and to know that all of those experiences are welcome because now we can be shaped by our current tables and we can be shaped by the tables that others invite us to, and to embrace that and to embrace our humanity and the human experience, whether we've had tables or we didn't have tables, because it's never too late to have a table, especially when you have beautiful people.
Well, mission accomplished, Antoine. Mission accomplished.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that.
Oh, so I could just talk about this book forever, as you can tell. There's something else that I keep wanting to bring up, but I do want to ask if there are things that you're currently working on that you might be able to give listeners a sneak peek into, whether an actual sneak peek or a little cagey little sneak peek. We love it all.
Yes, all right. So we recently announced two books. One is Tears Are For You, and that is being illustrated by Jamil Law. And we also have People of the Coast, which is illustrated by Cosby Cabrera. The Tears Are For You is my way of talking about the vulnerability of Black young dreamers, but especially young Black boys, in a world that does not always give us space to be vulnerable, to cry. And the story in itself takes place in the South, where a young dreamer's tears are reflected in the world around him, from grandma's sweet tea to the raindrops that pepper grandpa's farm. Then we have People of the Coast. People of the Coast is my literary celebration of Gullah Geechee culture. For those unfamiliar, Gullah Geechee people, Gullah Geechee culture are descendants of predominantly West Africa, where the enslaved were brought over here to the low country of Charleston, South Carolina, Beaufort, South Carolina, Jacksonville, Georgia, anywhere from the coast of North Carolina down to Florida. And it's those that have maintained a lot of their African retentions, from the way that people do sweetgrass baskets and basket weaving to the way that we have lived off the land by shrimping and crabbing and those practices to the way that we harvest and plant rice crops. So I wanted to make sure I was able to honor the culture because in the last stand, I mentioned sweetgrass baskets. In the gathering table, we mentioned low country boil. But now I wanted to just try to put it all on the page here as a celebration of the culture. And of course, I can't put it all in there, but I hope that, especially for people that identify as Gullah Geechee, for those that have lineage that links back to Gullah Geechee culture, and for those that have different cultures, I wanted to say what gives culture culture. So I looked at our customs and traditions. I looked at spiritual expressions. I looked at our food. I looked at our people. And I want in that book people to reflect on the culture and their own culture and ask those same questions. Um, and I'm currently working on my young adult novel, which hasn't sold yet. So we'll see what happens with it. And I'm hoping to have something ready by the end of this. And we
Wow.
have a few other books coming out that haven't been announced yet. Yes.
Oh, I can't wait for all of them, especially the two that you have just book talked, but certainly all of them. An open invitation. I'm putting it out where everybody can hear. Open invitation to return to talk about them all, please.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That makes me feel really good. Thank you, Stephanie.
Good. So where is the best place for listeners to find you so that they can keep up with your newest releases and just learn more about you?
Yes. I'm very active on Instagram at Antwan.Eady. So Antwan period Edie. Um, for school visits and requests, there's a contact page on my website, which is antwaneady.com. And schools, libraries, event organizers, they can request me from there. There's a school visit form on that website, but I also have my publicist information there. But yeah, I'm very active on Instagram, I would say, Antwan.Eady, and always try to respond when I'm able to DMs and messages, especially on my contact page. I always get back to people there. But if someone just wanted to say hello, there's also a contact where they could just send me an email without having to do the school request visit. Uh, but also on that website, on that contact page, there's a section where young dreamers or anyone, dreamers of all ages, can actually write letters and send me information. So there's a mailing address that goes to my agency, and then my agency makes sure I'm able to receive it.
I love good old snail mail. I'm so
I
happy
know.
about that.
Same. I just moved it over there, but I have a stack that I was going through recently. So yes, it was phenomenal to go through that. And I just moved it from my desk to my dining room table. So
I love that. Well, I will make sure to compile all of those links and places and put them into the show notes, along with, of course, links to the books that we've talked about today. This has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on today, for being so patient and coming on today, and for just sharing such beauty on the page. It's I can't wait to share this with everyone, and I can't wait for whatever comes next from you. It's just they're beautiful. Thank you so much.
thank you. Thank you for having me. I am steeped in gratitude. I have been listening to the podcast um, since we linked up, and it's been wonderful. I've added it to my weekly podcast now when I'm at the track of podcasts, literary podcasts that I listen to. So thank you again for having me. This was a joy.
Oh, it sure was. And listeners, I bet you felt it too. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the KidLit Love podcast. You'll find links to all of the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. You'll also find KidLit Love on Substack. That's where you'll find posts for each episode, monthly KidLit roundups, and an invitation to join my summer book club and go deeper into the world of children's literature. And if you loved this podcast and want more, you might like to listen to my other podcast called Get Literate. It's a podcast that explores all things books and reading, notebooks and writing to build a life you love. One more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish community of KidLit Love. Thanks for listening.